Welcome to Life, Lessons, and Laughter with your host, Glenn Ambrose.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Life, Lessons, and Laughter with Glenn Ambrose. That's me. And please welcome my guest tonight and friend of mine from Panama, Michelle Miller.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Glenn.
Hey, you're welcome. Welcome to the show. So here we are. And it's exciting because you are releasing your first book.
Yes, this Friday, October 1st.
Nice. October 1st. Is the official release date. So what's the title of your book, Michelle?
The book is entitled Heart First, a Female Psychedelic Call to Adventure. Okay,
well, we are going to dive into that today. I mean, that just sounds fun, you know.
It was.
Yeah, and it landed you in Panama. That's how I met you. I was going to go do a retreat there. You were nice enough to invite me over, and then the retreat didn't end up happening for one reason or another, but it wasn't supposed to. But we stayed in touch ever since, and yeah, you've been working on this book for a while, and really, from what I saw from a distance, put your heart and soul into it. So,
thank you. Yes, I'm excited.
Yeah, you should be. So, what's this book about? What's this psychedelic, trippy ass stuff going on?
Well, the short is it's a story about escaping societal expectations and living a life of everyday magic.
There you go. There you go. That's kind of yeah.
The long takes people through my process of waking up at an early age, and I say waking up with air quotes because I'm a little uncomfortable with that term. I know that not everybody understands it, and it feels a little egotistical to me, but basically waking up to the fact that outside of our material world, there's a whole other natural world and spiritual realms that I became very curious about. Unfortunately, that curiosity wasn't really encouraged in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, this is true.
Yeah,
we're coming out of the 60s and 70s where it kind of was encouraged, and then like the 80s and 90s was more about excess, and you can see it in the drugs. I mean, the drugs went from LSD and weed and the experimental free love stuff to excess and cocaine. Faster, harder, more, like just, and that kind of it represented the cultures back then.
Yeah, and that was definitely a role. Like psychoactive substances definitely opened my mind and actually showed me more answers to some of the questions I had about the universe, and really set me on my journey and gave me the courage to believe that there was something outside of our like man-made constructs of what we're told is reality, and that I just needed to follow my heart, even though it was going against the system and going against the grain. But I became determined to find an alternative reality for myself.
Yeah, and I think, I think what's important here is, like, I think, I'm guessing that this conversation is probably going to be pretty fun, and we're going to play around with, discussing different aspects of psychedelics and stuff like that. And we're probably going to have some cool stories in there, but like, I think what's really important is, I look at myself, for example. I mean, I was completely lost until I was 35, until I got sober and woke up spiritually, through that method. But when I look back, I could see, and this is just my own personal perspective, but I hear it, especially nowadays in the last several years, from many, many people. When we're younger, there was something, when we're being conditioned to believe the way we're being taught by society, there's something inside of you, a lot of people that are going, I don't think this is right. Like there's something wrong with this. And like, when I kind of had an epiphany many years ago thinking about this, and I was like, I think addiction for a lot of people, especially like drug and alcohol addiction, is their refusal to forget their truth. Because it's like, because you're sitting there as a young person and these adults are telling you like the way society works and what you're supposed to do and what life's about. And it seems like there was a part of me, and I think a lot of other addicts as well as people in general, but namely addicts for this particular example, that we're sitting there going like, I don't, this is a load of crap. Like, this can't be right. This can't be right. So we don't fully drink the Kool-Aid. We don't fully buy into the idea of society. So what happens if you don't do that? Like, what happened with me is I never fit into society. Why? Because I never bought into society fully. So that if you don't know what else to do, if you don't do anything else, you're stuck in a very difficult place, because you don't fit into society. You don't believe what they're telling you, but yet you're too young and, unknowing to figure it out yourself. And a lot of times I couldn't.
There was nothing else really at that time. I mean, what else was there, right? And so, right. I mean, I did go to the Grateful Dead concerts when I was pretty young, and that showed me a whole other world of like Western caravanning that was going on and people living a more spiritual life close to the earth. But for me, it was like, so it's either a Grateful Dead tour or work in a cubicle job that I hate. Like, there was nothing in between. And that's where the integration comes in, which I knew nothing about back then.
Exactly. Yes, that's it. There was, and as children, every time you speak what you probably know to be the truth, it's, everybody, you're just brushed aside. You're told that's not realistic, whatever. So you can't really latch onto it. So it is those two things. You either buy into society or you suffer. And then I think, which leads us
I wasn't suffering. I was just going way off the rails, enjoying.
Well, right. This is what and that's what I was going to say. Like you either buy into society or you suffer, or you found a doorway. So
yeah, but
so
I
what was the doorway you
far
took?
Gone for a while. And that's a bit of the struggle in the book, is just finding that balance between the material and the spiritual. I just didn't know there wasn't in between,
Right. That's it. It's the integration. And I think that's the foundation for everything. Like even my book, Down to Earth, A Spiritual Being's Guide to a Happy Human Experience. Because we have to bring our spirituality into our human experience. We have to integrate those two if we're going to find balance and a joyful existence here on this planet. We can't, because I think sometimes I think that's a big part of the learning curve where we are now. It's, there's a huge spiritual movement going on. But
and a huge psychedelic movement, which is a spiritual awakening usually, and integration is huge in the psychedelic community as well. It's like we gain these insights on our spiritual journeys, which a psychedelic journey is usually a spiritual journey. But then what do we do with it? How do we integrate it into our everyday life?
Right. So now this is kind of curious, because I have my own perception of it. but I want to get yours. And it's like, what's your perspective on psychedelics as far as using them to get high as opposed to using them for spiritual awakenings or more growth centered purposes?
Well, it's interesting because it's becoming spiritually correct to only use psychedelics for spiritual purposes, where I was not even exposed to that really. My trips were spiritual, but they weren't intended to be. I had no intentions. I mean, we were having fun and we were trying to discover more about the universe, but it wasn't like I was writing my intentions down and choosing my set and setting. And here's where I see a huge crossover, even with like spiritual bypassing. To me, it's like you're doing it. You're on the journey. To me, it doesn't really matter the intention, or, you know, if you're skipping over something or one aspect of it. If you're already there, if you're already doing it, the rest comes. And I was joking, but I'm like, what happened to fake it till you wake it?
Well, so I mean, that this is interesting because it's because like I woke up through addiction recovery. So like when I had no interest in doing psychedelics in any way, shape, or form, because I wasn't interested in altering my mind in any way, shape, or form, because I had used that as an escape for so many years. I saw the negative aspect of it, so I wasn't interested in doing it again. But then all of a sudden, ayahuasca kept like calling me, and I'm like, what? You know, like I know when something's spiritually calling me. So, and just for the record, to this point, I have not done ayahuasca. If the time was right, I'm sure I would, but it hasn't been. So, but I started looking into it, and I started really seeing all the benefits that they found and that they've actually proven through not just ayahuasca, but everything really out there, especially, you know, I mean, let's just kind of lean in a direction of more natural stuff as opposed to man-made stuff, because I'm sure somebody has some controversial, you know, blah, blah for that. But I mean, but you know, just the stuff that the earth provides with the ayahuasca and the mushrooms.
Yeah, plant medicines.
Right, all the plant medicines, the animal medicines, and stuff like that. Like I've gotten to know some of that stuff since I've been over in the Dominican Republic, and I've experienced some of it. And wow. You know, I mean,
and
I took acid when I was.
We are being like spiritually correct about it, and I completely understand. It's because, like you said, in the 60s and 70s, you know, psychedelics got this far out, kind of unruly reputation. And science is now working really hard to do all these medical studies and to prove the benefits of psychedelics in clinical studies, healing, you know, PTSD, healing trauma, near-death trauma for people. It's bringing people peace who are clinically or is that clinically ill? No, that are near death.
Critically ill.
Critically ill.
Yeah, and through addiction too. They're having really good successes.
Smoking, alcohol. Yeah. I mean, there's so many benefits, and I know that nobody wants to rock the boat. It's like, wait, we're making headway, and so honestly, my book is kind of stepping out and away from what is considered politically or spiritually correct right now, talking about the funner aspects and like the silly side of it, but I'm also weaving spirituality into my story and personal growth and all of it.
Right. And I think that's good. I think, you know, I like, you know, when I was young, 18, 19, 20, I don't even know, but you know, I took acid and tripped like you read about, man, and had some serious experiences. I didn't awaken, you know, it didn't really do anything for me spiritually. Like I wasn't even open. I didn't even know what spirituality was. So I mean, to me, it was just getting high for a night and then having some whacked out experiences and then coming back down. And that's what my experience was.
Well, that was part of my
then.
confusion too, because I was like, well, why, if all my friends are using these substances with me, why am I the only one that's like this far out and just can't get with the program, and like even experiencing psychic abilities and like seemingly creating my reality? Like, isn't anyone else seeing this? So where I started thinking I was maybe going crazy.
Oh yeah, I bet. I mean, so it, like, when you said, you were obviously talking about using the psychedelics to get high and have fun and also explore the mysteries of the universe. Do you think perhaps because you had that piece of just curiosity about the universe, that
I had never thought about that. My unintentional intention. Maybe because I really was looking for answers, maybe more so than my friends who were just partying or getting high. I don't know. That's very interesting. And this gonna have to journal about that.
Yes. And it's, and it doesn't need an answer. It's purely a hypothetical, and it could be different for different people. But it's like, when I look at my experience, I was looking to get high. I wasn't exploring the mysteries of the universe. I didn't think that when I saw stuff, I didn't think it was because I went through a doorway into a different realm. I thought I was tripping my teeth out and I saw some cool shit, so like that was that. But then now over here, when I took mushrooms here, and when I took the mushrooms, my intention was solely spiritual. I mean, I had no interest in getting high whatsoever, and I didn't get high at all. I had amazingly profound experiences and went through all types of experiences to help me grow and awaken spiritually even more. But it was 100% that. Whereas when I was a kid, it was 100% not that, and it was a different substance, we'll be fair. But it's just, I guess that's why, I'm like, okay, I had this experience that way. And then when my intention was different that way. And that's why as soon as you said, I was curious about the universe, I was like, well, maybe that was it. Maybe that's because I didn't know what I was doing when I got sober. Like, I didn't know. My intention was to not suffer anymore. And I didn't give a crap if I died or if I got sober. I could care less. But my intention was to not suffer anymore. And that's what I found. And I didn't do anything right. Like, I didn't do the steps correctly. I don't think there's no actual correct way to do the 12 steps. I was a mess mentally, emotionally. I couldn't do anything right to save my life, but my intention was there.
Well, see, and that's what I would say about psychedelics and or spirituality, that there is no correct way. And when I hear people throw the term spiritually bypassing around, I don't know. It just makes me cringe. It sounds like a judgment. It sounds like someone's not doing it right, or I don't know. Yeah. To me, it's like, at least you're doing it. Is my take.
Yeah, at least you're leaning towards something happier. Well, and I think the spiritual bypassing thing, I don't know if it's true or if it's not, because like you had mentioned that once, and I was like, that's a very interesting perspective, because people do spend a lot of energy defending their right to feel unhappy. Because like many years ago, we found out that you shouldn't stuff your emotions, right? So the learning curve right there was like, oh, we're not supposed to stuff our emotions. I have the right to be miserable and unhappy and sad and all this stuff, which is, yeah, you do. You do have the right to to feel unhappy. And sometimes if something upsets you and you allow yourself to feel the anger, and then maybe you shift the way you look at it and move on with your life, that's probably an appropriate way to handle it, because you're not stuffing emotions without feeling them. But I think people have missed that part. Like, I think they're just kind of stuck with, no, I want to feel, I have to feel all my emotions. So if I'm in them, then I'm doing something right. And it's like, yeah, I don't think that that's true. I think we have to get beyond them. We don't have to sit in them. And I think maybe that's why the spiritual bypassing has become such a catchphrase, where people are like, well, no, I have to make sure I feel my emotions. It's like, yeah, okay. It's okay to feel your emotions, but you don't stay there.
Exactly. I think there's just a fine line between honoring and then moving on. And like, you've got to move on at some point, otherwise you're stuck. And I think that we've come so far on the other side, because there is so many mental health issues right now, that we've come into an age where we need to hold space for people who are, suffering from depression. We need to be able to honor people's feelings, but at the same time, I mean, I just struggle with being toxically positive. So I'm not somebody that's going to say, well, just snap out of it. Everything happens for a reason. I know everybody needs their time and needs to honor it, but I'm also like, but come on, like, lift up. Being positive in love is the idea.
Yes, I agree. And that's it. It's like, what's the point? I've said that many times throughout the years, when sometimes we'll get into debates about, and it can get very serious, with this spiritual shit. And it's like, you get into these debates and everything, and then it's all of a sudden, it's like, let's pump the brakes for a minute. Why are we doing all this? Like, what's the point? What's the point of doing spiritual work? What's the point in going back into your childhood? What's the point in just being here on earth? What's the point, And the point, I think, is to be joyful and happy and enjoy our experiences here. Like, otherwise, why bother? So we can, work on ourselves for the next 80 years. And then on our deathbed, get a score or something, like there's a teacher, life. Well, you worked real hard, like, yeah, I think it's the leftover from our linear mind. That's how on Earth everything is linear. So that's how we're so conditioned that we start here, and then we just continually work at something, and then somebody lets us know when we graduate. And a lot of times that mentality comes into spirituality, and it's just a mentality of work. And it's like, that sucks. If I woke up spiritually 18 years ago and found out that I was going to spend the next like 70 years of my life working at it,
yeah, I was like, what?
I would have offed myself right then. No freaking thank you. No, when I woke up spiritually, what I found was that there was peace, love, and joy to have right now. There was happiness to have now.
I think it was on the Collective Conscious episode, like, let's learn from positive experiences. We don't necessarily need the failure to learn. That's like very cliche right now about failing. And I know we do learn a lot from failures in our lessons, but we also learn from our blessings. And I've been shown like so many cool universal truths and channeled and just evidence of everyday magic, to where I don't know, I don't need the conflict. And that was something that was really difficult writing, because the way I wrote Heart First, because I was writing memoir, it's almost like fiction, because there has to be an arc and there has to be conflict and resolution and tell a story. And so I was really struggling with like, but wait, why can't it just be one amazing thing after the other? And I take people along for that journey. Why, as a society, are we so addicted to conflict that we have to have it in our books, that we have to have it in our movies, Otherwise, it's just someone, as I was explained many times, it's just somebody going along doing whatever they want, and it doesn't like
yeah. What's better than that?
You know?
That's the book I want to read. I want to read the book that somebody's just going off doing whatever they want. That's
and learning all these like universal, laws and spiritual truths. But nope, there has to be conflict.
So from your, so let's kind of dive into your experiences. So you were what, a teenager when you started leaning into this direction and experimenting with drugs and partying and opening and different ways of life?
I started smoking weed at 14 and I first tried psychedelics at 15. And then I got pretty into it, 16, 17, for about 10 years. Doing it very regularly, like every weekend if I could, sometimes even during school week. So, and
I remember a girl like you in high school. Everybody had a girl like you in high school.
Yep, I was Miller, the crazy one.
Nice.
But here all these universal truths were unfolding for me, and people were like, no, you need to learn algebra. You're failing algebra.
Yeah.
And admittedly, all the adults in my life were like, yeah, you'll never use that, but you just have to do this. And so therein lies a bit of the conflict. But also, really is just looking for my parents' approval, like wanting them to approve of or understand me or understand why I was doing the things I was doing, why I didn't want to go to college, why I was railing against the system, how I could trust the universe, how I knew everything was going to work out for me. And that was really a missing piece for me for a long time, of really searching for their approval.
So how the dog just scared herself. So how, like, when did you kind of come to that that truth that you knew that everything was going to be okay? Were you young as a teenager where you were like, you had, figured that out through your experiences?
Yeah. So I'd say one of my first psychedelic trips, and we were saying it was halfway recreational party. It was halfway spiritual, and it fluctuated. So my girlfriends and I were at the beach. I was 16 years old. And looking at all the sand, we were like, wow, just think one tiny, tiny little grain of sand makes up this entire beach. Like, put them all together and it makes up the entire beach. And then think about, all the sand on the bottom of the ocean that expands through, the entire planet. And then, we would get really stupid and silly and start laughing. Oh, we were laughing about other people walking by, and we were like, hey, look at the sand. Don't you notice the sand? Like, we're having this spiritual epiphany of all the sand. And then we turn towards the water, and the same thing, one little drop of water. It's like a Taoist principle that makes the whole. And I realized that I was the same, that I had all these tiny little atoms in me that made up the whole, and I was just one tiny drop of water in the whole universe, and that I was connected to everything, and that I knew that by connecting the dots with my thoughts, that I could choose my own reality. I saw it almost like the stars, and connecting a line to the stars of what direction I wanted to go in. And so I guess it wasn't really until I was on my own, till I was 18, 19, and started venturing out, that I realized, okay, yeah, the universe has my back. Like, I mean, think of somebody and they would show up that day in my life. Or, it was little things at first. But then one of my first journeys, my backpacking journey that I took when I was 19, I went up to Alaska to work in a fish factory.
Of course.
Of course,
because
you
what
know,
else would you
every
do at
young
19?
woman, vegetarian woman from California goes to work in fish factories.
It's a dream. It's a common dream.
That was the dream. I was connecting the dots to my reality.
Oh, wow.
Which it wasn't so much about fish for me. It was just about like the great frontier and being outdoors and a true adventure. But I went, all my girlfriends had secured jobs and I didn't have anything. And I was sure it would work out for me, and it did. So, you know, it was over the course of traveling without plans. And actually, I got pretty addicted to it because it is an altered state as well when you throw yourself out into the world and you make no plans. I mean, my life had absolutely no destination, and I was open to endless possibilities. So it became almost addictive of like putting my test or my faith in the universe to the test all the time.
Wow. This is I'm loving this conversation because it's
It
like
was so psychedelic, even without psychedelics. And I'm sure you can relate being in the Dominican Republic. Every day is kind of psychedelic when you're exposed to new things and you're like trying to figure out the message and what you're supposed to do or what does it mean and culturally. Yeah.
It is. That's why I think this is so helpful for me. Like when I moved over here, everybody's like, why? And there was many reasons, but to sum it all up into one, it's just because I knew I was going to be a better version of myself over here. Like I knew, and I could see it, like my cultural fears that I had been just stacking on. And now this is, you know, I've been spiritually awake or whatever you want to call it for 18 years, consistently working on myself, creating a business around it. I'm kind of pretty much knee deep in this shit, right? And I'm still, when I came over here, I was still seeing all the unconscious conditioning from the United States way of life that didn't fit over here. And the stripping away of fears, the stripping away of me using my tools to get through life, like my ability to speak and, you know, and intellect and rationalize. And none of that does anything over here. They're like, I don't care. You know, and I don't understand what you're saying because you're speaking English. So like, you know, I was stripped away of a lot and in a different culture that doesn't function the same. So yeah, it's like it just strips away all these things that you leaned on unconsciously for so many years. So it's a trip in itself.
For sure. Yeah. And like you said, stripping away the fear. I mean, and that was the thing. I just wasn't going to let fear hold me back. Like, it wasn't enough to keep like this sense of security. I pretty much saw that's a false sense of security, believing in money as security, or even at like 13, 14 years old, I was like, yeah, but anything could happen.
Absolutely. There is no security. People all want, you know, people want stable jobs and stable lives, and there isn't one. You know, I think COVID showed a lot of people that. They're like, oh, whoops. You know, so this is, you know, this is where we are. And I'm just finding it so interesting that like, because I'm hearing what you're saying without any prejudice towards psychedelics or prejudice against anything else, right?
Thank you.
So I'm hearing what you're saying, and it's so interesting because if people did have a prejudice against psychedelics, it would sound weird. Okay, we have some teenagers sitting on a beach, you know, playing with grains of sand and saying they can understand the setup of the universe and going, hey man, look at this sand, you know, and it sounds silly and it sounds like a joke and it sounds like some kids are fucked up doing some drugs on the beach, right?
Yeah.
And nobody takes that seriously.
Yep.
But if you go back and you listen to the world's top spiritual teachers like Eckhart Tolle, Deepak Chopra, you know, Wayne Dyer's books, if you go back and you look at any spiritual text like the Bible, like the Tao Te Ching, you know, like the Quran, they all speak of this same thing.
Exactly. And you know, I only really had
so
the
it's
Bible.
like, this is profound stuff.
I only really had the Bible to draw upon, and until I was like 19 or 20 and I started diving into more spiritual type texts, like you're saying. But yeah, I was so confused. I was like, what is happening to me? I started to feel like I was going crazy, especially that summer in Alaska when everything worked out for me far better than my friends who had planned everything to a T. And that just showed me, oh, wow, you let go of your expectations and you just trust and you create the unimaginable. You make room for the unimaginable to happen in your life. Yes. And so I was learning all these lessons, but I was like, what is this? Is this ask and you shall receive? Am I just doing way too many drugs? Like, do I have superpowers? What is happening? And I really didn't feel like I could talk to anyone about it. I thought I would sound crazy thinking I had like guardian angels or superpowers or, yeah, on too many drugs.
And it's funny because the other thing I see is, you know, like I said, this is an interesting conversation on many levels for me. But like another thing is like I'm seeing I had similar experiences, but I wasn't open enough to understand them and grow or learn from them in any type of good way.
You mean when you tried psychedelics at a younger age?
No, well, I mean, it was around that time, but it was like I was going through I went through a tough time, like, you know, 17 to, I don't know, 22 or whatever, somewhere in that area, in the height of my alcoholism. And I was experimenting with a lot of drugs at that time, but it wasn't just that. It was, you know, like at that time, I was trying to figure out who I was as a person. And, you know, and I started seeing some of the same things that you're saying. Like I saw that, like, oh my God, like my mind was I was battling depression too. So I usually had a darker slant on like, so at one point in my life, I actually thought that I couldn't die because I was so depressed that like I was trying to make sense of life. And I was like, okay, if there's a God, and I'm like, yeah, everything that I was taught about God doesn't seem right. But then I was like, well, if there is a God, why does he hate me? It seems like he hates me. And I'm not good enough for him, so he must hate me and all that stuff. So I created a mentality of like, oh, you know, if God hated somebody, what would he do? Would he like allow them to die young, or would he make them suffer here for like 80 years?
That's funny.
And I was like, he would definitely make me suffer, and he definitely hates me. So I'm like, there's no way I could die. And I mean, I literally used to like drive through red lights and just do all kinds of crazy stuff. And I'd look at people, I go, I can't die. And they're like, yeah, right. I'm like, hang on a minute, watch this. And I'd go do something that could literally kill me. And I'd walk out the other side. I go, yeah, I told you. And they're like, oh my God, maybe you can't die.
Well, and that's so interesting because I write about that and how, so psychedelics and same with spiritual experiences, they give you what's typically called a sense of ego dissolution, where you realize that you're not your physical body, that you're spirit, and that you're eternal. But at 19, that information was just a prescription for total recklessness. I thought I was invincible as well. So So very interesting. I think it is kind of that like spiritual immortality type.
Yeah, there's
awareness.
some sort of, and I mean, I was way too messed up battling depression and whacked out thinking and suicidal thoughts. I was way too going in the wrong direction of negativity to come across any positive way of looking at this, which I have now.
That's so interesting, because I went the opposite way of just like optimal optimism, and I was an eternal optimist that everything was going to work out, and
wow.
I was just going for it.
I was like that when I was like that when I was younger, but when I got into the depression stuff, it knocked me all over the place, and then I ended up there, for a while, but yeah, I made it, so what the hell,
Yep, and you're gonna have to suffer probably and live till you're 80.
Well, yeah, but I don't have to suffer anymore, thank God.
No, I'm joking.
Or minimally, thank God.
That's
but
so
yeah,
funny.
it's I think that you were, this is how I think this is good, because I think a lot of people do go through what I went through, and not only have been through it when they were younger, but are going through it now too. But like your way, is obviously, in my mind, it's obviously the better way, I mean, because if you lean in the direction of positivity, and then all of a sudden these questions start popping through your head, you're going to find the answer that's closer to the truth. My answer wasn't very close to the truth. I mean, maybe I couldn't die, but my reasoning was so detrimental to my life.
Well,
so
I do believe that it is also intention. Then you're sending your focus towards more negativity and darkness, and it keeps you there,
Yeah, I got stuck in the darkness until I got sober, really, that was unfortunate, but then, of course I popped open and all that stuff. So that's cool. But like your journey, you were able to take this and learn. So you were in your late teens, early 20s, and you were already really kind of getting this stuff. So like, when did you said that you weren't really sure as far as the like, you thought you might be going crazy, but you were having these epiphanies. So when did this stuff start settling and you started kind of making some sense of some of it?
It took
or was
a
that
while.
just sporadic through the next 20 years?
I was just testing it out. I was like, all right, so it seems like I'm creating my own reality. Here I am living with no plans and a little bit of money, and I managed to find a job. And so then I was like, let's take it to the next level. Let's go travel with no plans and no money. And let's see what the universe has in store, right? Let's see if everything works out. And here, the adults in my life and my parents, like you said, they were not thinking like, oh, this is a spiritual quest. They were like so worried about me, thinking I was crazy, making stupid life decisions. And here I was like, nope, I'm gonna crack the code,
Nice.
Because I was like, okay, so am I co-creating my reality? Am I creating it? Is the creator creating it? And I just kept on having more and more experiences that kept, layering my knowledge and giving me more. I looked at it as like rewards for taking that step. It's like, okay, no risk, no reward. Wow, look at what you're being shown now. I mean, wow, I've had out-of-body experiences. I've channeled information and have it be told back to me that same day, to where I was like, I am not making this shit up. Like,
oh, yeah.
And then it was just interesting, like, I was opening myself up to all these opportunities. But when you're 19 or 20, what opportunities are coming are like some guys in a van inviting me to go to the Rainbow Festival. I'm like, excellent. See, the universe has got a plan.
And it wants me at the Rainbow Festival.
For sure, the Rainbow Gathering. So, yeah. And then I was just like testing it out. I'm like, okay, so what are these people doing? Like, this is a intentional community. It's a prayer for world peace, right? The Rainbow family gathers in the national forest and creates like a whole village for 1 week to where people come together and they drum and they chant and they feed each other. It doesn't cost any money when you go in. I'm like, to me, this is an opportunity to see what else there is in the world. Like, what other possibilities? Okay, here's people who don't have real jobs. Like, what does that look like?
Yeah. That expands your mind so you see things differently. And
for sure, I feel like it's almost like that book, Are You My Mother? Where I'm like, are you my
lifestyle? Yeah, try them all on for size,
Yeah, because I didn't really know what was available. So I was like, okay, this is happening. And there's like diehard rainbows that are on Rainbow Tour or that travel with the Rainbow family. And that's what they do, I'm like, okay, yeah, no, that's not really my thing, but like, cool to see. I mean, I share the same ideologies, a respect for the earth, living in harmony together with all our brothers and sisters, like, okay, And so I just kept following the breadcrumbs and following the opportunities. And that's why it's a call to adventure. I was just going wherever adventure called and just really trying to find my own way and open to whatever that would be.
It's what it is. You used your life as a spiritual journey, and I mean, I guess, I guess, I guess I'll just be a realist at some point and say, like, we get to choose our own way. So, like, not everybody that's listening needs to go quit their job, take acid, and travel the world, to find themselves spiritually. But like, that is a way to do it too. It's about what you're finding out, like the name of your book is Heart First. So it's about leading with the heart and finding what works for you. And, through exposing yourself to different examples and different experiences that other people do and going, oh, wow, this is really cool. I have a lot in common with you people. But I'm not going to join you in travel because that's not what my heart is telling me I should do. But I really like the way you guys look at life. That's cool. And then you go on to your next adventure. It's like, it's such, sometimes I talk with kids that are in college and stuff, and it's what I'm realizing is what I'm teaching them is kind of a maybe, for lack of a better term, more grounded version of what you were doing. I'm like, if you're in college and you don't know, just, get some of your primary courses out of the way and experiment, man. Look around and follow your heart. If something captures your attention, follow that. If something brings you joy, follow that. That's our guidance system. And we've, a lot of people don't even know that's our guidance system. It's like, why would a creator, like, whether it's a loving God or just like a creative intelligence, intelligence is the key word. Like, there's some sort of intelligence that makes, no matter what you believe, there's some sort of intelligence out there that makes things. Why would something intelligent set up a system where you don't like what you're supposed to be doing?
And look how intelligent it is. With the trees that make oxygen that we can breathe, and Yeah,
Yeah.
rivers,
Right. So there's examples of intelligence everywhere in all ways around us that nature provides. And it's just endless the ways that we can see its intelligence at work. But yet it's going to create a system that makes no sense whatsoever. That's foolish. Of course our guidance system is going to make sense. Of course. So what would make sense? I don't know, something that feels good then you would want to do it more. I mean, look at sex. That's why sex feels good, because nature wants us to do it. If nature didn't want us to do it, it wouldn't have made it feel good. So it's the same thing when we're walking through our life. If we're paying attention to what makes us feel good, what captures our attention, what our heart is calling for, that's our guidance system. Now, you may have done it traveling all over the world in this cool ass story, which is actually your life. But there's many ways of doing that. We can do it that way, like you did. We can, now I'm doing it your way.
But
traveling the world now.
I started off just really asking the questions and following my trains of thought. And I started off realizing, oh, well, that seems pretty commonsensical. This isn't something someone's teaching me in school, but if I follow the thought, I pretty much come to my own conclusion that makes more sense than what other people are saying. Like, if God is love, let's just go down a train of thought here. Why would he have people burn in hell? And then my little 12-year-old mind would follow that thought and go, well, that makes no sense. He wouldn't. Right. He or she, right? They wouldn't. If it's a loving God, then
right. It's like, I think we're made in the image and likeness of our Creator as far as what's innate within us. So like when I look at, this is why, like me having my son, I used to use that train of thought all the time, because I'm like, okay, would I create a world where my children, like if they didn't do what I told them to do, then they were going to burn in hell for eternity? No, I would not create a system like that.
I'd be leaning more towards unconditional love personally.
Right. And God doesn't have an ego. He doesn't need my freaking approval. He doesn't need me to do what he says for him to feel good about himself.
But what you were saying of teaching like college students just to listen to their hearts or listening to their gut feeling, it's just that I started learning through observation and realizing that that's a whole other way to learn and being present. It's like if we're so wrapped up in our jobs and school and people's expectations of us and where we need to be, we're not even going to notice the miracles that are all around us or these opportunities. Someone can be like, hey, over here, come this way, free school, job, whatever you want. And you're like, nope, got to do this,
Must be a catch.
Don't have time to answer that door right now.
Right. Yeah, it's true. We miss the opportunities a lot just because a lot of times we get so upset that things don't go the way we want them to, It's like something we go, oh, I'm not sure which job I should take. I'll take this one. I think that's the right one. You get there and you're like, oh my God, this is horrible. I made the wrong choice. And instead of going, oh, okay, the universe has my back. So that means if this is the wrong one, there's a window open somewhere for me to climb out to the next opportunity because the universe has my back. God has my back. I'm loved. I'm cared for. I'm protected. Instead of doing that, they're going, oh my God, I made the wrong choice. And then, and they beat themselves up for making the wrong choice.
And now I'm stuck here.
Oh no. And this is horrible. And now it's like, and meanwhile, there's a bird in the window going this way, and you don't even see it because you're too in your head about the intellectual decisions. But if we just relax, we look around, there's always opportunities. Opportunity doesn't knock once. That's all it does. It's its only job. It just runs around knocking all the time. And if we weren't so, having our earmuffs on and so focused, we'd be looking around going, ooh, what's next? Something good's coming. Where is it?
Yep. Amen.
I think it's awesome that you learned all this stuff and the way you learned it. It's what a.
Can you talk to my parents?
No. Can you talk to mine?
I'll send them this.
Yeah. But I mean, it's just so, you know what? Maybe, and I think this is actually a good point to make to people out there. And I was actually having a conversation kind of on this point with my parents the other night. And it's, we were talking about action takers and processors.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to keep it on point with what we're talking about. It's just different ways of doing things, right? So like in action takers and processors, like an action taker, I'm an action taker. So I'll take the action, and then I see processors not taking the action, and I'm sitting there going, what are you waiting for? Just take the action. And it takes them forever to process and get themselves ready, and then to finally take the action. And meanwhile, I'm pulling my hair out.
Yeah, in Myers-Briggs, I think it's like feeling and perceiving or something like that. And I'm a feeler or an action taker, but the rest of my family is a processor for sure.
Mine
and they're
too.
Very logical.
Mine too. And I'm very logical, but I do take action. Like I've always been like this. I trust myself, and now that's in alignment with the universe. When I was younger, it was just, I had no fear of consequences. I didn't give a shit what you did to me. I knew that I'd make it. So, but regardless, I've always trusted myself. But when I take action, what I've noticed is that I do go through an adjustment period after. Like I take the action, and then am I just swimming like a professional swimmer? No, it takes me a little while to learn my way of swimming and getting used to living the way that I decided to live when I took that action. And there's an adjustment period after. And I noticed that processors have a shorter adjustment period after. So I don't think there's that big of a difference between the way we do things. It's like I can take action in the first month and then take 5 months to make the adjustments after. And a processor takes 5 months to process, but then they take the action and it almost has no adjustment period. So it's still 6 months.
Yeah, it's not good. It's not bad. It just is.
It just is, right? So yeah. I think it's, so if you look at, which really leads to the point of, I think, this conversation and your life is such a good example of that. Instead of judging how somebody did it or what's right and what's wrong, just do what's right for you. There's not one way. And if you follow your heart, you're going to find that way for you. And maybe it's an action taker, maybe it's a processor, maybe it's a little bit of both. Maybe you'll lean into the psychedelics and open up that way to your spirituality. Maybe you'll find spirituality and then fall into the psychedelics. Maybe psychedelics won't have anything to do with it. Whatever.
Right. Maybe you come into a yoga practice. You become a yoga instructor. You discover travel, or now you can work globally and live abroad, and you're experiencing new things and following your heart. It really is all about just following your heart.
That's it. Following your heart and, having the experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I could talk to you for another 3 hours, but we're trying to wrap this up and keep it under an hour, which we're just about to do. So I'm going to say goodbye, and then maybe we'll have another discussion.
Sounds great.
I think there's more to uncover here.
Yay.
So
and I'll send you a book, and then we could have a book club meeting.
Ooh. Uh-oh. All right, more to look into.
It will be an altered state as well. You get a contact high from the book.
Oh, nice. You didn't put acid on the pages, did you?
No, it would cost a lot more.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to wrap up so we can end this before an hour. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Michelle, for being on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was fun.
Absolutely. We'll do it again. And thank you, everybody, for listening. And we're going to say goodbye. Talk soon.
Looking for more? Check out over 200 episodes of Life Lessons in Laughter, or click the link in the description of this episode to connect with Glenn directly.